Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this second part of the Eastern Area Planning Committee on Wednesday, the 1st of July. I'm going to repeat some of the things I said this morning, as we're likely to have different members of the public listening in than we had earlier. So this is one of 3 area-based planning committees of Dorset Council. Our area of remit covers the previous Purbeck District Council and most of the East Dorset District Council areas. For the benefit of the public, I am Tony Coombs and I'm chairman of this area planning committee. With us this afternoon, we have Liz Adams, planning case officer, Naomi Shinkins, planning case officer, Kim Cowell, principal planning officer, Chelsea Gollidge, reading up public representations, Steve Savage from Dorset Highways, and we may also have Colin Graham from Dorset Highways, Laura Altree, solicitor, and David Northover, our committee support officer. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the council has had to put in place measures to enable the council's decision-making processes to continue whilst keeping members of the public safe. And that also includes councillors and council staff in accordance with the government's guidance on social distancing by applying new regulations for holding committee meetings from remote locations. This meeting is being live streamed to the public and a copy of the recording of the meeting will be available on the website after the meeting. Public participation will take the form of written statements as opposed to public speaking. And we will deal with those as we get to the applications. I need to do a second roll call for this afternoon session, please. Do we have any apologies for absence, David Northover?
Chairman, apologies from absence. Apologies for absence from Councillor Beryl West. Councillor was hoping to join us again at 2 o'clock.
Okay, well, no doubt we will find out when she appears, but she will not be able to take part in any of the deliberations if she hasn't heard the whole item.
It is.
Whoever's got your microphone on, can you turn it off, please? So I'm now going.
Chairman, David Northover, just to be clear, I know that Councillor Ezard won't be joining us this afternoon. It's Councillor Mike Dyer that hopes to be able to rejoin.
Yeah, he is here. So I'm going to go through the roll call just so we know exactly who is here. So starting from the top, Shane Bartlett, Vice Chairman. Shane, are you in the meeting?
Present, Madam Chairman. Sorry, I couldn't get the microphone to work.
Okay. Alex Brenton.
Present, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Cherry Brooks.
Present, Chairman.
Robin Cook.
Present, Madam Chairman.
Mike Dyer.
Present, Chair.
Beryl, we know, is apologised. Barry Gorringe.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. David Morgan.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. David Took.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Bill Trite.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. And last but not least, John Worth.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to public participation. Members of the public have been invited to submit written representations, which are limited to 450 words. Members of Dorset Council who are not members of the committee and who wish to address the committee will be allowed to speak. All requests have to have been registered with Democratic Services by 8:30 AM on Monday the 29th of June. So moving on to the applications this afternoon. When this meeting was publicised, we only had one. However, due to technical problems that we had this morning, we've had to defer our second item from this morning into this afternoon's session. So our first application will actually be the St George's Primary School in Langton Travers. Background information referring to the applications before us today has been available for inspection by members prior to the meeting, covering consultations, objections and representations, as well as the East Dorset and Purbeck local plans and the Council's related policies. For the benefit of the public, in each case, I will invite the case officer to introduce their item. Members of the public, planning agents, applicants, town and parish councils have been invited to make written submissions, and these will be read out by Chelsea Gollage, who has not been involved with the merits of either of the applications, but only in providing technical support. The representations will be read out in the following order: public against, public in support, the applicant or agent, town and parish council, and then local member who is not on the committee. Following the public participation section on every item, I will ask the officers if there are any salient points that they wish to clarify. I will then ask members to open the debate. In order to run the meeting efficiently, may I request that members of the committee direct any remarks and questions through the chair, and I will invite members to speak in turn. Requests to speak need to be made via the chat facility. Please do not use the chat facility for anything else, as we need to have our decision making transparent. Please, can you also keep your microphones and video on mute when you are not speaking to maintain quality of audio and video. At the end of the debate, and for transparency, I will take the vote by roll call. The vote will be recorded in the minutes if 3 or more members ask to make the necessary request. I will also ask members to confirm that they have heard the entire presentation and debate before they cast their vote. So that now leads us on to the 2 applications that we have this afternoon. The first one being 6/2020/0167, alterations to Field Gate and creation of pedestrian gate at St George's Primary School, 76 High Street, Langton-Matravers. And Elizabeth Adams is going to take us through the presentation. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Liz Adams and I'm presenting on behalf of my colleague Ros Drain. This application is for alterations to the Field Gate and creation of a pedestrian gate, and it comes before members because the council is the applicant. The site is in Langton-Matravers and it lies on the southern side of the High Street opposite St George's First School. So the school is here and we're looking at an access to the field to the south. The land lies within the Langton-Matravers Conservation Area, shown here in blue. It's also within the Dorset Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty and the Purbeck Heritage Coast. St George's Church of England First School lies on the edge of the Langton-Matravers settlement, and the playing field, which lies to the south, is just outside the settlement, and it is an asset of community value. Here we see the context. Firstly, looking east along the High Street, we see St George's School on the left and the playing field on the right, and this photo is looking in the opposite direction. So the current layout has a pedestrian gate adjacent to the vehicular access gate, and Purbeck stone walling demarcates the edge of the playing field on either side, although you saw from the photos that there's quite a lot of greenery as well. It's proposed to enlarge this vehicular access and to relocate the pedestrian gate to the east so that it is directly opposite the school entrance gate and can be accessed via a new crossing point that is also proposed. Now, the improvements to the highway shown here between the school and the field don't actually require planning permission, but they're shown here to show why the proposed gate has been located in the position identified. As the site lies within the AONB and the conservation area, there is a statutory requirement to conserve and enhance the natural beauty of the landscape and preserve or enhance the significance of the heritage asset. Now, the National Planning Policy Framework requires that when considering planning applications, the council should identify whether there is substantial harm, less than substantial harm, or no harm to heritage assets. In this case, the stone wall is identified as a positive feature of the conservation area. It is visually prominent and contributes to the area's character. A very short section is going to be removed, 1.4 metres wide, and this will result in limited harm. So it's judged to be less than substantial harm in the terms provided by the NPPF, and this harm is outweighed by the benefits of providing a safer access for the village school. The new timber gates will match those that are in existence, as you see here, and the alterations to the stone wall will also be using the same materials. There's no intention to remove the existing apple tree seen here, and overall it's judged that there will be no harm to the area of outstanding natural beauty or the special character of the heritage coast. The recommendation is therefore approval, subject to a condition to secure the matching materials mentioned. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Cherry Brooks has indicated that she has an interest to declare. Cherry.
Thank you, Chair. I am the ward member for this application, and I have been working with our highways team on the build outs in the road. The gate that's under question today is a desirable because it's off the on the straight line, but it's not imperative. So although I've got a non-pecuniary interest in the road bit, I feel that I'm okay to vote on the gate. If you're not happy for me to vote on the gate, I'll abstain.
Do you have any personal financial gain from this application?
No, I don't.
Therefore, you do not have a pecuniary interest and you can vote. I will get clarification from Laura Altree, who is our solicitor supporting us today. The only question would be bias and predetermination.
That's right, yeah. I don't have predetermination on the gate because they can still go, they can still turn right and go through the other gates, the existing gates.
Okay, I think you're fine in that case.
Okay.
Yes, Chairman, it's Laura Altree here. That sounds fine to me.
Thank you.
Thank you for that confirmation. Okay, who do we have from Highways supporting this application?
I'm Colin Graham, Dorset
Colin,
Council.
hi, Colin, sorry.
Yeah, hello there. I'm not actually the promoter, so I just got, in the normal scheme of things, I got asked to comment.
Yeah.
And
is there anything you wish to add to the presentation at this point, or did you want to respond to members' questions?
Clarification on the fact that it's going to be a slightly raised, as it says in the text, it'd be a slightly raised surfacing plateau on it. And I spoke with the designer on that, but no, nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. On this application, we do not have any public speakers, so I will go straight through to my first speaker, who is Shane Bartlett, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you for the officers for the report. Having read through it, there are no material planning considerations that would warrant refusal for this, and the only reason it's come to this committee is due to Dorset Council and its association with the school and with the highway. And I'm quite happy to move this straight to approval, Madam Chairman, as laid out in the report and subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My next speaker is Robin Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, actually, I'm happy to second the proposal, but I would just say that we've been told that the build out in the road is obviously going ahead or has happened already. And my view is not so much the children crossing from the school to the field through the gate, but it's where the new position is sited. I think it's much, much better for when they're leaving the field, because the instinct will be to go straight across the road. And in its existing position, I think they'd have to turn right and then cross the road at that hump, that raised section. Whereas if we approve this now, which to me, my mind seems very sensible, it does prevent that additional risk of them running out and going perhaps naturally straight across.
Lovely.
So I'm happy to second that.
Thank you very much. Barry Gorringe, you're next to speak, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Robin's actually jumped in and beat me to it because I was going to second the this application.
Apologies, Barry.
Pardon me?
Apologies, Barry.
Okay, you're forgiven.
Through the chair, please.
Yeah, basically this preserves the significance, still preserves the significance of the conservation area, so I'm more than happy to support it. Thank you.
Okay, I have no more speakers, so I will go. It has been proposed and seconded for grant. I will now go through the roll call for the vote and remind members that you do need to declare that you have listened to the full presentation. So starting from the top, Shane Bartlett.
I've listened to the full presentation, Madam Chairman, and a vote to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Brenton.
I approve. I have been here throughout.
Thank you. Cherry Brooks.
I've listened to the presentation and taken part, and I would like to approve the application.
Thank you. Robin Cook.
I've listened to the presentation and happy to support.
Thank you. Mike Dyer.
Present throughout and support, Chairman.
Thank you. Barry Gorringe.
Yeah, I've listened to the presentation and I'm happy to support.
Thank you. David Morgan.
Heard every word, happy to support.
Thank you. David Took.
I've listened to the entire presentation and I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you. If I haven't asked you to speak, can you please turn your microphone off? Thank you. Bill Trite.
I've listened to the full presentation and fully support.
Thank you. And John Worth.
I've listened to the full presentation and happy to support.
Lovely. Thank you very much. David Northover, can you confirm the outcome of the vote, please?
Chairman, I confirm that the outcome is that it's unanimously approved.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as David has said, that is approved. So we now move on to our third and final application for today, which is 319-2271, demolish the existing buildings and erect a dementia care home with new vehicular access and parking provision at 5 to 7A Edmonsham Road, Verwood. And Naomi Shinkins is going to take us through this presentation, please. And Steve Savage will be providing any highways support as required.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members. Can everyone see my presentation?
We can indeed.
Okay, good. My name is Naomi Shinkins and I am the case officer for this application. So this application, as the Madam Chair said, is application 319-2271, and it is an outline application for the site at 5 to 7A Edmonton Road in Verwood. It's to demolish the existing buildings and erect a dementia care home with new vehicular access and parking provision. This is a revised scheme from the previously refused applications and is based and revised plans were submitted at the end of February 2020. The nominated officer referred this application to committee due to the concerns of the Town Council and the potential impacts on neighbouring amenity. Just to note, I have about approximately 40 slides in my presentation. There is a slide number in the top right corner of each slide, so if members would like to take note of any slides they wish to refer to later, that would be helpful. This first slide shows the location within the committee area, again, Edmonton Road in Verwood. The site is within the urban area of Verwood, and as we can see, it's to the northwest of Verwood. The site also adjoins the town centre boundary, as we can see on this map here. Here's the application site, and this is the town centre boundary line, which is to the south of the site. The wider surrounding development comprises a mixture of residential and commercial uses, and this map shows the other uses these other uses, including shops with flats above, the police station, surgery, library, and memorial hall. So we can see the police station here, Fairwood Surgery here, the library here, and the application site here is here, and we can see these residential areas around the application site. The blue arrow on the plan does show the extent of the commercial area within this part of Station Road. This is an aerial view of the site, which gives you an idea of the landscape area. We can see quite a lot of vegetation in and around the residential areas, less so along Station Road, and there's a number of protected trees located to the south of the site, as indicated here. So the site itself is 0.2 hectares. The current access is from Edmonton Road. There's one access here and another access here. And the existing buildings on the site are clustered to the north of the site, with areas of garden to the south and west along here. The images here show the existing commercial structures, which is 7 and 7A, and this is the existing bungalow of number 5. Again, the site comprises the detached single-storey structures, one of which is the residential bungalow, and this is the view of the bungalow from this point here on the site, where you can see the extents of the garden, of the amenity space. The photographs on this slide here show views north and south on Edmonton Road, and it also highlights the landscape character of the area. In terms of the surrounding area, to the north of the site, we have the pair of semi-detached dwellings, which are number 9 and number 11 Edmonton Road. These properties predate much of the development on Edmonton Road, and number 9 in particular is orientated with a number of rooms within the property facing south on the side elevation, namely these windows here. To the west of the site is a group of 3 bungalows at 8 to 12 Station Road, shown in this photograph here. Taken from this point here, these are set behind development fronting onto Station Road, with turning and parking areas that adjoin the application site, which is this turning and parking area here. There are 3-storey flats opposite on called Fairwood Court, which is located here, and then this is the crossroads to Station Road, the old crossroads, which is a mix of commercial units with residential flats above. The site is also within 400 metres of the protected heathland of Fairwood Heath. In terms of the planning history, application 319-0341 OUT was refused in September 2019. This application was to demolish the existing buildings and erect a 3-part 4-storey 38-bedroom dementia care home with new vehicular access and parking provision. Again, this was refused in September 2019, and the reasons include impact on neighbouring amenity to the north, given the proximity of amenity space, as well as upper floors, which I will highlight later. Impact on the character of the area as a result of the proposed car parking to the frontage. Impact on protected trees as a result of the hard landscaping located next to those trees, and there's insufficient information provided for drainage and biodiversity. This is the street scene of the refused application, which shows the relationship to number 9, which was one of the reasons for refusal. So refused in February 2020, 2 applications were originally submitted for the same proposal to the council for determination. This is the correlating application, which is 319-2163 OUT, and again was refused in February 2020. The reasons for refusal for this one includes still the impact on the neighbouring dwelling at number 9, the impact on trees as a result of the hard landscaping. Insufficient drainage information was provided, and there was a new reason for refusal with this planning application, where basement bedroom accommodation and amenity space was considered unacceptable. This is the street scene of this also refused application, and again you can see the relationship to the neighbouring property at number 9 hadn't changed sufficiently and was one of the reasons for refusal. This is the application that is currently under consideration. So application number 319-2271 OUT, again, to demolish the existing buildings and erect a dementia care home with new vehicular access and parking provision. Again, this is the revised scheme. This proposes for a 2 to 3 story building plus basement for the care home, which will have 29 beds. The building would take the general shape of a T with 3-story elements to the south and west of the site, stepping down to 2-story and single elements to the north adjacent to Edmonton Road, which I will show later on. The building would also include the curved single-story cafe and a basement level where there would be ancillary staff and operational spaces, including meeting rooms, kitchen, library, storage, office and staff spaces. The main entrance to the building is to the south, and the vehicular entrance is located off Edmonton Road at this point here. The parking within the car park would include 9 bays, which are part of a stacking system, which I will go into a lot more detail later. It would also, which would be used by staff. It also includes 10 other spaces, 7 of which are located within the car park, 3 which are located fronting Edmonton Road, and also the ambulance bay located here. Cycle provision and cycle parking and bin store provision have also been provided on the site. This shows the street scene from Edmonton Road for the application under consideration, and we can see here where the proposed is single story at this point, stepping up to 2-story, and then retaining the 3 stories above ground at this point. So in terms of what has been previously refused and the changes made, as mentioned, the previously proposed basement bedrooms and amenity space have been removed. So there's no longer the amenity space located here. As we can see, it got smaller through each revision. The beds again have been reduced from 38 to 29. The hard landscaping and the parking has been reconfigured from sort of more extensive to less so in order to protect the protected trees on the site. The 2-story elements, as I showed on the street scene earlier, had been set further back to reduce the impact on the neighbouring property to the north. Further flood and drainage information has been provided, and the BMEP, updated BMEP has also been provided. In terms of the public response to this application, in total there were 66 letters of objection from 44 addresses which were received, and the issues they raised were in relation to design, use, impact on the character of the area, impact on neighbouring amenity, access, traffic, highway safety, impact on the heathland, impact on trees, and the impact of construction. In terms of what's been provided within each floor, the basement accommodation provides the staff, store, kitchen facilities, meeting room and library. So this would be the kitchen facilities right here. Then in terms of the ground floor accommodation, we have the reception, which includes a nurse's station, ground floor bedrooms, which are located across the ground floor, also here, the cafe area located to the west, and a staff office space also at ground floor. In terms of the first floor accommodation, it will comprise a nurse's station which is located here, our first floor bedrooms throughout, the staff suite, and also storage areas. In terms of the second floor accommodation, it's the nurse's station and second floor bedrooms. Here we are shown the elevations. This is the north elevation, which would face number 9 Edmonton Road, where we can see the single-story element, the 2-story element, and then stepping up to the 3-story element. This is the southerly elevation, which shows the 3-story elements, which is located to this end of the site, and the single-story cafe to the west. This shows the east and west elevations. Again, the street scene as previously identified where it steps up, and the west elevation where we can also see the different levels. So by way of summary, and in comparison to the most recently refused application, which was refused in February, obviously the site area and use are the same. The biggest difference is the reduction in floor area, particularly at first floor level, which has resulted in bedrooms being reduced to 29, and that's also a result of removing the basement bedrooms. This then has allowed for a greater separation distance at first floor level, which improved the relationship to the neighbouring property at number 9 Edmonton Road. In terms of materials, it's brick, render and tile identified, but the details of this haven't been specified, and the approximate ridge and eaves height have essentially remained as before. So in terms of the principle of development, the site lies within the urban area where the principle of development is acceptable. Bearwood is also identified as a main settlement where residential and other development would be focused. The proposal would provide 29 additional units of accommodation, which would contribute to delivering a sufficient supply of homes within the local plan area, and has potential to release 16 possible units of accommodation. The concerns have been raised by neighbours and third parties that there is no need for an additional care home in the location. The adult social care team hasn't responded to this particular application, but on previously refused applications did note there are already a number of care homes in the vicinity. However, the applicant has provided information and data regarding the need for care homes catering for persons with acute dementia in this area, which the adult social care team did not dispute in the previously refused applications. The NHS has also been consulted but have not responded. However, again, it is noted that in their response to the previously refused applications, they did not identify any risk to their services as a result of this development. Therefore, the principle of development is found to be acceptable. In terms of the impact on the character of the area, just to remind you of what the surrounding area is like. As noted previously, the existing character of the area is generally mixed, with varying architectural forms and styles depending on the use and the use of the area. So again, to the north of the site, we have the two-storey residential semi-detached houses of 9 and 11 Edmonton Road. To the southeast of the site, we have the three-storey development of Fairwood Court. To the west of the site, we have the single-storey bungalows, which are behind the numbers 2 to 6 Station Road, again single story, and then onto Station Road we have the juncture of the old crossroads, where we can see commercial at ground level and 2 stories of flats above. So in terms of the impact of the proposed on the character of the area, concerns have been raised by third parties that the proposed scale and bulk is out of keeping with the character of the area. This was addressed in the previously refused applications, where the officer considered it to be generally acceptable architecturally, given the mixed nature of the character of the area with commercial and residential uses and the varying heights of up to 3 stories. Issues with bulk were also raised in the previously refused application. However, these were considered to be not so detrimental to warrant a refusal, given that it would only be glimpsed between buildings on Station Road, and also the impact was not considered to an extent that would warrant refusal on the view from Station Road, 8 to 12 Station Road, where you could see the 3-story elements here. Notwithstanding this assessment, this current application, again, the first floor area has been reduced, where the separation distance to number 9 has been improved, so the actual bulk has been improved over what was previously refused. So again, another previous reason for refusal was the car parking frontage. This was addressed in the second iteration and has been continued to this application that's under consideration. Officers consider, the planning tree officer consider there's sufficient space for landscaping to be provided here that would address issues in terms of the impact on the character of the area. Only 3 parking spaces would be fronting Edmonton Road, and the landscape again is a reserved matter which will be dealt with in detail later. So in terms of impact on neighbouring amenity, concerns have been raised that the proposed would result in overlooking of neighbouring amenity, loss of light of neighbouring properties, additional noise and concerns regarding the location of the bin stores. So this plan here shows the separation distances, and I'll show these in more detail on the next slide. But in general, at ground floor, it's 1.6 to 11 metres from the neighbouring boundary, 8.7 to 15 metres at first floor level, and at second floor level, it's 15 to 17.5. To the west, it's 4.5 at ground floor level and 19.5 at first floor level, and 4.5 at this point here on the site plan. This photo here does show the image from 8 to 12 Station Road. This is the existing bungalow roof on the application site. So this slide here shows the application refused in February 2020, and this is the proposed, and it shows the improved relationship to the dwelling at number 9 Edmonton Road here, namely the increase of the separation distance to 8.7 to 15 metres rather than 2.8. Also, I should point out the applicant has submitted a lighting study which does show that this proposed application that there is no undue restriction of light in line with the BRE guidance. This slide here shows the relationship to 8 to 12 Station Road. These are the bungalow dwellings located here. This is the turning and parking area, and we can see that the cafe area, which will Oh, hello?
Hang on, Naomi, you've frozen.
Yeah, my computer just cut out. Just one.
Okay.
Oh,
Do you want
am I back online?
You are. Do you want to start that slide again, please?
Yep. So I presume you saw everything on this slide, and I presume I can move on to slide number 27.
Naomi, Dave North over here. We can see your presentation, we can hear you, but your visual is still frozen. So I don't know how that's affecting your end.
I can hear everyone. Shall I continue? And if there's an issue, perhaps someone can stop me.
If you continue, please continue. If anyone is having a problem, can they put it on the chat, and then I will interrupt.
Okay, I can't see the chat.
No, I know, I can,
okay.
And I will let you know.
Okay, perfect. So this is, again, this is 8 to 12 Station Close, and as we can see here that the proposed cafe, which is 4.5 metres from the neighbouring boundary, is located to the front of 8 to 12 Station Close, and their amenity space is to the rear, and it's adjacent to the parking and turning area. And the windows of the cafe will be fixed shut except for one opening, which is located here to the north elevation, which is 11 metres from the northern boundary. So it is acknowledged that there are 2 windows of first and second floor levels that are approximately 4.5 metres from the neighbouring boundary to the south. However, these are considered acceptable where there will only be oblique views of the neighbouring amenity space, and proposed windows are approximately 25 metres to the neighbouring dwelling, which is located here. Other concerns that have been raised in terms of noise and disturbance in relation to the proposed use, such as the cafe and the location of the bin store. So the proposed kitchen is located in the basement and is 13 metres from the closest neighbouring boundary. Details of the plant and servicing have been conditioned to be provided prior to commencement to ensure it does not impact negatively on the neighbouring amenity. With the kitchen located in the basement, the proposed cafe will mainly be for serving and dining. And again, there's only one opening to the north, which is 11 metres from the northern boundary. It is also acknowledged that the bin store is within close proximity, as in adjacent to the neighbouring boundary, but this is due to issues with protected trees, where it was previously located here. It has now been moved here.
Naomi, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. Messages are coming on, so you are still on slide 27, is that correct?
No, I've moved on to slide 29.
27 is still showing.
Okay, I've moved on to slide 29.
So we've not seen 28 either.
Sorry, when I try and send you live, Naomi, I'm just getting error messages. I think your whole computer's frozen up from this end.
Okay, I'm just wondering, should I stop sharing and reshare?
Hi,
Lindsay,
it's Lindsay here, second producer. Can I suggest that you stop sharing your desktop and then reshare it, and we'll see if we can see if it unsticks.
Okay.
Would you mind also doing the same with your camera, Naomi?
Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, would you mind turning your camera off and on again
Yes,
as well?
I can do that.
Thank you.
Is that working, Lindsay?
I'm not seeing your desktop shared. I don't think Lily will be able to see it either. Do we want to go to plan B? Have we got another way of accessing the presentation?
Kim, could you put the presentation on your computer and I can ask you to move the slides?
We have Chelsea Gollage said that she can get the PowerPoint and share it on her screen. So if we can do that, please. Apologies to the public. One of the joys of virtual meetings.
Yeah, I'll get that up. Which slide would you like me to be on?
Slide 28, please.
Okay, I'll get that up now. Can you see that all okay?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Lindsay,
Yes,
I can't see that.
Can you work from your notes, Naomi?
Yes, I can work from my notes.
We're on slide 28. If Chelsea can move, if you can just tell Chelsea when to move them on, and you just work from your notes. Is that okay?
Yes, that's absolutely fine. I'll work from my own computer screen, and just one moment while I set this up.
Unfortunately, Chairman, we're not able to get Naomi's camera at the moment, but we are able to hear her.
That's fine. Not going to be easy. So if anything needs to be pointed out, then she's going to need to be very clear in asking Chelsea where to put the pointer.
Okay. Shall I start from the top on slide number 28 in case anyone has missed anything?
Yes, please.
Okay, so in terms of neighbouring amenity in relation to the windows to the south, again, it is acknowledged that the two windows at first and second floor levels are approximately 4.5 metres from the neighbouring boundary to the south. However, these are considered acceptable where there will be oblique views of neighbouring amenity space only, and proposed windows are approximately 25 metres from the neighbouring dwelling. Next slide, please, Chelsea. So in terms of slide number 29, concerns have been raised regarding noise and disturbance in relation to the proposed cafe and the location of the bin store. The proposed use in general, including the cafe and the location of the bin store. So the proposed kitchen is located in the basement and is approximately 13 metres from the closest neighbouring boundary, and the details of plant and servicing have been conditioned to be provided prior to commencement. With the kitchen located in the basement, the proposed cafe will mainly be for serving and dining. There is only one opening to the north, and that is located 11 metres from the neighbouring boundary. It is acknowledged that the proposed bin store is located in close proximity to the neighbouring adjacent boundary, but this was previously to the southeast towards the protected trees and had to be moved as a result of the protected trees. The bin store itself will be within, itself is a contained enclosed structure and is considered acceptable in planning terms. Next slide, please, Chelsea. So in terms of the amenity of future occupiers, concerns were raised by the Dorset social care team in response to the previously refused applications regarding the suitability of the proposed accommodation for use as a dementia care home. They were concerned that the proposed design didn't meet modern practice standards for dementia care, such as where it's preferred to have rooms sort of clustered in smaller units and communal space on every floor, and also not to have corridors that don't have a destination. Whereas what's proposed is essentially the separate bedrooms, and all the communal space is located on the ground floor for this application. However, on balance for the previously refused applications, the standard of amenity proposed was not considered so inadequate as to form a reason for refusal in those applications, and as is the case with this application. Another previous reason for refusal, which I mentioned, were the basement bedrooms, which were considered unacceptable, and those have now been removed. Next slide, please, Chelsea. Slide number 31, so the highways considerations. So the main vehicular access will be taken off Edmonton Road towards the southeast of the site, which would provide access to the car park. Within the car park, there would be 9 spaces provided within the stacking system, which would be used for staff only, and a further 10 spaces located within the car park itself, and 3 spaces located, 10 spaces in total, 7 within the car park and 3 fronting Edmonton Road. The proposed access is again off Edmonton Road, and there is the emergency, the ambulance parking as well, located towards the access. There have been a number of highways conditions imposed, and these are conditions 4 to 9 of the officer's report. Next slide, please, Chelsea. So in terms of the proposed stacking system, I am going to take some time here to describe or go through this in detail, because I appreciate it's unlikely that you've seen a system like this previously. So the proposed stacking system is a Klaus multi-parking system G63, which is an outdoor installation. So the principle of the stacking system was considered acceptable subject to condition in previously refused applications and did not form a reason for refusal previously. The agent has provided further details in relation to this, and these details are as follows. The Klaus stacking systems have been installed in over 7,000 locations within the UK, and 70% of these have been within residential development. When the stacking system is closed, the only evidence of its presence will be the vertical columns that will be positioned halfway along each parking bay, and these are approximately 1.8 metres in height. When the stacker is closed in the lock position, the surface material would match that of the proposed surface material, but the landscaping in this instance is a reserved matter. In terms of operation, it takes approximately 30 to 40 seconds to go from closed to fully open. The installation would be within the ground and it would use electric hydraulic equipment and would be housed within an insulated tank that's 5 meters below ground to reduce the noise levels. In terms of the shift times, there are sort of 3 different shift times. So for nursing staff, shifts would be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m, kitchen staff 8 a.m. to 6 p.m, and front of house would be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So the operation of this stacking system would be within those times, and again would be for staff only. So amended plans have been provided which show the relocation of the bedroom window of GF6, so it is not obstructed by the proposed parking stacking system column. Then in terms of the security and safety of such a system, the platform is fitted with features that include a sensor that detects human proximity, and in the event that the system senses the presence of an individual close to the platform when it is in operation, it would automatically shut down and cannot be used again until it's reset. The operation by the platform would be by key fob only, and you need to use that with a external or a system of a fob that is located on a column outside of the structure. Just to note as well, in terms of the safety of such a system, this would be come under the management of the actual site itself rather than a planning consideration. However, we have conditioned this to be installed as per the manufacturer's specification. Also to note, there will be a condition added to the application, and I will go through conditions in more detail at the end of the report. But there will be a 9-car stacking system. The condition would be the 9-car stacking system hereby approved as identified on the site plan shall only be used by staff employed on the premises and remain in the closed position at all times except for the purpose of loading and unloading vehicles. And that would be in order to protect the amenity of the occupants of neighbouring rooms. I should also note that Klaus, the manufacturer's contract with the application requires 6 months service by its operatives, and in the event that the system breaks, the standard contract offers a 24/7 call out and repair. Next slide, please, Chelsea. So in terms of the proposed stacking system, again, just a summary of the points because I've just spoken through a lot in detail, which I will give members an opportunity to read. Again, while this is not ideal, it's a proposed engineering solution to parking, and on balance, considering the points above, it is considered to be acceptable in terms of the planning considerations related to this. Next slide, please, Chelsea. So in terms of pedestrian safety, concerns have been raised that the proposal will create highway safety issues due to the lack of pavements around the site. The officer acknowledges these concerns, and given that there is no pavement on part of this opposite the site, however, there is a narrow pavement to the extent of Edmonton Road on the side of the application site. Dorset Council Highways have been consulted and have not raised any highway safety issues. Next slide, please, Chelsea. So in terms of trees and landscaping, the site includes a number of mature trees on the southern boundary and is covered by site-wide TPO. The concerns had been raised by third parties regarding the impact on trees, on the protected trees. So a number of issues were identified by the Council's Tree and Landscape Officer. However, throughout negotiations, the hard landscaping has been reduced to a significant amount that has overcome the concerns of the tree officer, and parking has been reconfigured as a result of this. Just to note that the current tree information hasn't been updated to the latest plan, and a condition has been added to ensure that is done. A pre-commencement condition has been added to ensure that is done. Next slide, please, Chelsea. So in terms of drainage, originally the lead flood authority raised some concerns regarding the level of detail provided and the information provided. However, subsequently additional information was provided and the LFA no longer have concerns subject to drainage conditions that have been imposed. As you can see on the slide here, the surface water movement is indicated by the dark blue lines. It's directed to the permeable paving, which is then taken to a chamber with a flow control device. And as you can see on the plan, the foul water connection is to the main sewer to the northwest of the proposed building. Next slide, please, Chelsea. In terms of biodiversity, so the application site does lie within 400 metres of Fairwood Heath, which I mentioned earlier. The proposal for a 29-bed care home in combination with other plans and projects, and in the absence and avoidance of mitigation measures is likely to have a significant effect on the site. Therefore, an appropriate assessment was carried out, and the appropriate assessment concluded that the avoidance measures in the form of conditions and planning obligations could prevent adverse impacts on the integrity of the site. These included to limit the residential occupancy of the site to those with dementia or with the requirement for 24-hour close care, restrict more than one member of staff from sleeping at the care home, restrict pets on site, and require the proposed parking to be limited to care home and staff visitors. A legal agreement dated the 21st of April 2020 has been approved, has been provided by the applicant which secures these measures. In terms of the biodiversity mitigation enhancement plan, concerns were raised by third parties that this was not an updated plan was not submitted. So subsequently, a Dorset Natural Environment Team plan has been submitted and is dated the 12th of May. It's noted that there are some changes to the hard landscaping, which is not identified in the plan in the BMEP. However, this doesn't affect the provisions that are provided for, such as the bats with external light requirements and access tiles, requirements for nesting birds, bees, requirements for a hedgehog with gaps in the fencing, and then the replacement tree, which will be located on the site. Next slide, please, Chelsea. In terms of waste, the Dorset Waste Partnership were consulted and they've advised that the proposed bin certification does not meet their requirements for waste collection. The agent has advised a private waste collection service will be used and is therefore not necessary to meet the requirements of the Dorset Waste Partnership, and a condition has been imposed to ensure this. Next slide, please, Chelsea. So in terms of conditions, there's a number of conditions imposed in this application. Condition 1, there has been some changes to these conditions as well above what is in the published report. So condition 1 is to ensure the reserve matters application for the landscaping will be submitted, and this now includes the wording to including boundary treatments. Condition 2, the approved plans have been updated to include the plans where the window has moved in relation to the car park stacking system. Condition 3, sample of materials are required. Conditions 4 to 9, that's access, parking, cycle parking, visibility displays, the stacking lift, and construction management. Surface water management conditions are conditions 10 to 11. Condition 12 is for the tree protection. Condition 13 is for the BMEP to be complied with. Condition 14, permitted development rights have been removed. Condition 15 is the refuge collection. Condition 16 is the pre-commencement noise and plant conditions, and under condition 16 is to include the addition of the car park stacking system, so we can assess potential noise from the plant of this as well. And condition 18 was a duplicated materials condition, but that's now been removed and will be replaced with a condition regarding closing the 9-car stacking system. Next slide, please, Chelsea. So in terms of a summary, the as described in the officer's presentation, the principle of development is considered acceptable. The design of the proposed is considered acceptable. The proposed layout and parking arrangements are considered acceptable, subject to condition. Proposed landscaping will be dealt with under the reserved matters application, but is generally acceptable as indicated. The impact on trees is acceptable, subject to condition. The impact on biodiversity also acceptable, subject to condition, and the impact on neighbouring amenity again is subject to condition. So the officer's recommendation is for approval, and that is the end of the officer's presentation.
Thank you very much, Liz. At this point, Steve Savage from Highways, do you wish to add anything to the presentation, or would you rather respond to any issues as they're raised?
If I may add just a few points, Chair, if that's okay, and then I'll answer any questions. The planning application itself was supported by a transport statement which looked at projected trip generation for the development. Now, the statement itself was relating to the original application, which was for 38 beds, and it's obviously now 29. So the figures I'll give you will be reduced from what were originally predicted. I think the important point is that the peak period of use of a care home such as this is between 2 and 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and that's when we'd anticipate 21% of the daily traffic movements taking place. Now, as I said, for 38 beds, we were looking at 24 two-way movements in that hour period. So you're probably looking something in the region of about 19 or 20 two-way now, between 2 and 3. I was particularly interested in that, obviously bearing in mind the school further up the road at Edmonton Road. The daily two-way trips, which are for a 12-hour period between 7 and 7, we'd be looking at around about, I'd suggest 95 to 100 two-way trips. So not a massive traffic generator. Another point to bear in mind is that I did ask them to look at pedestrian trips, allowing for the location of the site. And again, we were looking at about 2 to 3 an hour, which isn't a high number. Now, Naomi mentioned the car parking. You've heard the numbers, and they comply with our standards, or our guidance, I should say, and as does cycle parking. Again, the lack of pedestrian footway to the north, just to clarify, is Edmonton Road. There's a footway on the western side from the site up to Park Drive, and then it stops. There is no footway. But our anticipated movement for pedestrians would be to town centre itself, to the south, which is immediately through to a shared surface area, and then obviously the crossing facilities on the B3081. With regards to parking, there is the car park at I think it's Potter's Wheel car park, which is a 2-minute walk from the site. So there are other facilities for people to park if they do experience any difficulties. Naomi's mentioned the stacking system. I think it's fair to say it isn't our ideal choice, but it is an engineering solution that does work and that we will accept, and obviously has been accepted elsewhere across the country. Bearing all that in mind, Chair, the Highway Authority has recommended a conditional approval to this, and obviously I'll answer any questions that yourself or your members may have on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to move on to the public representations, and Chelsea College is going to take us through these. We have one member of public objecting, a representation from the applicant's agent, and one of the local members which also wishes to address the committee. So Chelsea, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The first comment is from Martin Summers. Despite some minor amendments, the north aspect of the building, although stepped down immediately adjacent to our property, is essentially 6 metres by 19 metres wall, which is going to dwarf our property and substantially reduce light to the southern aspect of our property, where the vast majority of our habitable rooms face. We do not believe that the amendments will significantly change this issue, which was a reason for refusal on previous applications, as the main bulk of the building has not changed. The car parking on site is reduced, but still in proximity of the root structures of the protected trees. The majority of the routes are likely to be within the property due to the road and developments on the southern boundary. The stacking system is nearly half the spaces provided and would most likely be reserved for staff members. This system is going to cause noise for adjacent properties and residents on the side of the building. It is highly likely that parking will spill over into the nearby residential road, which already struggles in terms of access. Public transport is not very frequent during the day, and evenings and weekends is even worse. Site access is opposite a junction and all traffic will come along Edmondsham Road, which is unlit and mostly unpaved. Pedestrian use of this road is increased since the Field Place development and Trinity School have been built, and 2 further developments to the north of the roundabout are only going to exacerbate the problem. Indeed, the southern end of the Edmondsham Road is blocked off to increase road safety, and this is the #1 objective of the Town Council, further than 3-legged cross town plan. I believe that the bungalows of 8 to 12 Station Road are likely to be impacted by flooding from water runoff from a site largely covered by this development. There are very little amenity areas to absorb rainfall. The Dorset Social Care Team has previously commented and their points were noted on previous refusals 3/19/0341/out. There are 9 dementia care homes within a 5-mile radius of Burwood and capacity has not been met. They show concern that the design does not appear to have regard to modern dementia-friendly design standards. No consideration of smaller household units within the home. Concern for long-term commercial viability of a home this size, and now it's smaller. Concern for sustainable pricing of dementia care in this area. We believe that policy HE2, layout, site coverage, architectural style, bulk, height, materials, landscaping, visual impact, relationship to properties and mature trees are reasons for refusal of this scheme. Policy DES2. Criteria for development to avoid unacceptable impacts from types of pollution, light, noise, etc. Policy DES11. Criteria for developments to respect and enhance their surroundings. The next comment is from Darryl Howes from Pure Town Planning, who is the agent for this application. My client's journey to this committee and the recommendation to approve started with a pre-application for a 37-bedroom care home pre-application, which concluded with your major projects officer issuing a positive written response. The officer confirmed that the principle of the development was acceptable and welcomed the good accessibility to public transport, cycle routes and the town centre. In terms of design, we were advised the scale and massing responded appropriately to surrounding development. The projecting rearward wing has been redesigned and lowered, so again created an acceptable relationship to neighbouring houses. We were told amenity provision for patients was adequate. Matters of tree relationship and parking needed clarification, but the only concern raised was the relationship to number 9 Edmondsham Road in terms of loss of natural light. On the basis of the positive pre-application, the applicant applied for outline plan permission in February 2019, but the officer's positivity evaporated 8 months later, as the scheme was refused on grounds of loss of light, poor resident amenity, disturbance to neighbours, lack of landscaping, albeit not a matter sought, alleged harm to trees and lack of drainage information and biodiversity mitigation. Upon receipt of the decision, the applicant decided rather than appeal that he would work with your new senior plan officer and resolve all of the concerns. The scheme currently before you represents the conclusion of those negotiations. The proposed care home now offers 29 patient rooms and the design amended so no harm to 9 Edmondsham Road occurs. The basement bedrooms have been replaced with ancillary accommodation. The sunken amenity space has been omitted. The car parking arrangement altered to provide 19 spaces, including an internationally adopted underground stacker system that hides 6 cars from the surface parking area and will be operated by staff only. Additional flood and drainage details along with biodiversity plans have been submitted, and now finally the scheme has that recommendation to approve. This scheme will provide for 29 dementia patients. Regrettably, there is an identified need for this use, which is ever increasing, and without adequate bed spaces will cause our healthcare system problems. This scheme will offer 20 jobs to local people in capacity of nursing, service and management. This scheme has the support of your senior plan officer, the council's flood risk engineer, tree officer, biodiversity officer and highway officer. The scheme meets the National Planning Policy Framework's definition of sustainable development as offering economic, social and environmental benefits, and now conforms with all of your own adopted plan and policies. I would ask you to support the officer's recommendation as presented. That's all the comments. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chelsea. I'm now going to move to local members. I'm one of the local members, but I will not be commenting on this application. So Simon Gibson, welcome to the meeting. If you'd like to turn your microphone and camera on, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good afternoon to colleagues on the committee. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak as ward member to this application. This is the first time that I've sought to speak as ward member on any planning application since the formation of Dorset Council. This is in part because of the protracted nature of this application that has caused considerable local concern. Whilst noting the changes that have been made, many of the concerns held by the public remain. as do the concerns of Verwood Town Council that I note and support. The application before committee is a revised application that was previously considered unacceptable. I appreciate the efforts that have been made to bring a revised scheme forward. However, the concessions still do not satisfy the neighbours' concerns and the feeling that this site is not appropriate for development on this scale.
Simon, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you. You might need to just backtrack a little bit. The case officer is having connection problems again.
Okay.
She's dropping in and out. She says she's here, but she can't hear anything. So can we just pause for a moment to see if we can get her back properly, please?
Naomi's just, Chairman Kim Cowell here. Naomi's just texted me to say that she's going to try and rejoin the meeting.
Okie doke. Yeah, it's important that she does hear all of the representation from the local member.
Chairman, it's Lindsay. I am calling Naomi back into the meeting, but I'm not getting a response at the moment. No, that didn't work. If she is able to rejoin from the link herself, that's great. Otherwise, I can try again in a moment, but that didn't work just then.
Yeah, we really do need to have her online for this application.
Chairman, we can wait a minute, or we can do a 5-minute adjournment, depending on how you want to deal with it.
I think a 5-minute adjournment would be preferable. And then I think because of the time lapse, we'll ask, sorry, Simon, we'll ask you to come back and start again from the beginning.
That's fine.
So if everyone can sort of remain close to your computer, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
I'm back now. Sorry, near me speaking. Hello?
Well done, thank you.
Sorry, I had to.
I
had to disconnect and reconnect.
That's fine. Okay.
Hi, Naomi, just to say, because I just put a slide up to say we were having an adjournment, but that's absolutely fine. I don't know if yourself or Chelsea can just reshare your desktop, please, so we have the presentation back in front of us.
Shall I try mine and see if we can get mine to work?
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing mine.
Hang on. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You're on slide 3.
Yeah, Lindsay, I have got a bad network quality warning, so it may cut out again.
Okay, I think we'll just have to take it until we get to a point. Lily, if you could just put that into the live feed, thank you. Okay.
Okay, everybody, so we have the presentation back up, we have the planning officer back online, and hopefully all members have stayed close to their computers and are ready to go. So I'm now going to go back to local member Simon Gibson, and I think because of the hiatus, as suggested, Simon, can you start from the beginning again, please?
Yes, of course. Okay, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak as ward member to this application. This is the first time.
Apologies, Chairman. It's Lindsay. I've just noticed that Naomi has dropped out of the meeting again. Okay. Shall we take the 5 minutes adjournment?
We'll take the 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, everybody.
Everyone can just mute their mics and I'll put the slide up.
Lindsay, I am still here.
Oh, you were sharing this.
Sorry, you were showing us having dropped out. And
what I'm going to do is I'm not going to share my presentation because I think that might be causing the issue. If I cancel, but I'm still here. So you can't see my presentation anymore, can you?
No, that's because I put the slide up. I'll stop sharing. Okay. Right. At the moment, we haven't got anything live. So are we going to put the presentation up, or we just got the chairman up at the moment?
I think if Chelsea could put the presentation up.
Yeah, I'll just get that shared now. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we have the summary slide up. Okay, so third time lucky. Simon Gibson, the floor is yours.
Thanks. I'll start from scratch. So, Chairman, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak as ward member to this application. This is the first time that I've sought to speak as ward member on any planning application since the formation of Dorset Council. This is in part because of the protracted nature of the application that has caused considerable local concern. Whilst noting that changes have been made, many of the concerns held by the public remain, as do the concerns of Verwood Town Council that I note and support. The application before committee is a revised application that was previously considered unacceptable. I appreciate the efforts that have been made to bring back a revised scheme. However, these concessions still do not satisfy the neighbours' concerns and the feeling that this site is not appropriate for development on this scale. I'm speaking in support of the concerns raised by neighbours and the wider town. Specifically, I'm not satisfied with the parking arrangements. I do not believe that they are suitable. I note the formula used to assess parking requirements and do not believe that allowing for nearly half of the required parking to be made up of a stacking system is appropriate. I share the concerns raised that this mechanical system is out of keeping with the local area and is too close to the accommodation of a number of the residents that would be living in the home. This will have a considerable impact on their amenity. I note the condition attached to the recommendation to ensure that it is maintained. However, there is no alternative parking options locally if there is a mechanical problem. This is why this proposal to address the lack of parking is not an acceptable solution. I note the comments from the highway officer about the use of Potter's Whale. I'm fairly sure that locally that would be considered inappropriate, as that car park is often already at capacity. One of the most compelling reasons for previous refusals was the wholly unacceptable proposals for basement accommodation. The revised plan rightly removes this, but instead puts several other important facilities in the basement area. I have concerns about the working conditions of staff, as a significant amount of their areas is now in the basement. As part of the revised plans, the removal of previously included external amenity space is unwelcome. While it does improve the relationship with the neighbouring property at number 9, I have serious concerns about the removal of this outdoor amenity area for the residents of the home. It feels like the changes to address previous concerns in this application have caused new concerns to arise as a result. I share the concerns raised previously by the Dorset social care team and neighbours about the internal layout and the lack of a modern approach to living arrangements. I note that the report believes that on balance, this is not considered so inadequate to warrant refusal. However, given the lack of updated response from Dorset social care team and the outstanding concerns of neighbours, I respectfully suggest that on balance it is unacceptable. Concerns about the location of the bin store, the spread of a part 3-storey building into an area that is predominantly single or double-storey homes are also reasons for concern. However, in conclusion, Chairman, the main obstacle that I do not believe has been overcome is the impact on the local area, policy HE2, and the negative impact on amenity that this application would cause. Therefore, I would like to join residents and Verwood Town Council in opposing the application. I'm grateful for your time, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Simon. Okay, I'm now going to ask if officers wish to respond to any of the comments made by members of the public and local members.
Yeah, I'd like to, sorry, Naomi, I'd like to Chairman as the Highway Authority, if that's okay.
That's fine, carry on.
Thank you. I'll just answer the questions that are raised, obviously, firstly by the objector, the member of the public. just to confirm that the stacking system is for staff only. I think they were voicing some concern about that. They mentioned public transport, and we're all well aware of public transport in rural Dorset, and Verwood's probably typical of that. So I'm not sure that that's an issue that would ever be one suitable for a refusal. As a highway authority, we've got no problem with the use of the main access directly opposite the junction in terms of safety. Street lighting was mentioned, the lack of street lighting, but there is a street light at the junction of Moorlands Road, Edmonton Road, directly opposite the main site access. Notwithstanding Councillor Gibson's comments, there is an element of on-street car parking in the immediate vicinity of the site. We obviously won't encourage anybody to park and cause obstruction or to park and cause an amenity impact across people's drives, but there are areas where people can park safely. And I think with regards to the car parking numbers, we have the transport statement, which, as I said before, was supporting 38 beds. We're now looking at 29. They were previously identifying a total of 30 staff, which would operate in 3 shift patterns, which I was assuming would be 10 members of staff per shift. This will be reduced by the number of beds that they've now reduced the proposal down to. So it could be argued that 9 spaces are required on site per shift, 6 of those provided by the stacking system, and then we have the residual part of the car park available for the staff and for visitors. So I felt that this was suitable in terms of car parking as well. And again, not a reason on highway safety that we'd recommend a refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just clarify something regarding that stacking system? You mentioned 6, but...
Sorry, it's 9, isn't it? You're
Thank
quite
you.
correct. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Naomi, is there anything you wish to add at this stage?
Yeah, I think in terms of, sorry, Naomi speaking, in terms of some of the points raised in the public objection regarding loss of light, again, as I mentioned, there was a lighting study has been submitted, and it's concluded that there wouldn't be undue loss of light as per the Building Research Establishment Standards. And again, a couple of other issues that were mentioned are being dealt with by condition. So, for example, the surface water flooding that was referred to, the LFA have agreed subject to condition. The concerns regarding noise, we've pre-commencement conditions in terms of noise for any external plant, which will include the car park stacking system. And obviously Steve has now discuss the parking issues, but just to address Councillor Gibson's comments regarding predominantly 2-storey and single-storey dwellings in the vicinity. There are a number of 3-storey, including Fairwood Court, which is across the road, and with all that in mind, on balance, in planning terms, we think this application is now acceptable. That's it from me.
Okay, thank you very much. I have 2 speakers at the moment from members. The first one is David Took.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate this is a previously developed site, but the stacking system is proposed to be 5 metres deep, was that correct? And there's going to be a substantial basement. Have we had any input from the archaeological team as to whether anything is required here? I mean, Verwood is an important pottery centre. Also, for many years from medieval times onwards, there's a pottery site not too far to the south, which is what is now Verwood Green. Is it possible to have input from the archaeological team, or do we need a watching brief, at least for the digging of the stacking parking system? And ideally the basement. Thank you.
To reply to Councillor Took, there's no site constraints identified that would suggest there would be archaeological interest on this site, and therefore I don't think it would be reasonable to ask for work like this to be done.
Can I come back, please, Chairman?
Yes, of course.
Briefly. If you're digging something 5 metres deep, you may well find something, and a watching brief is fairly easy. But Verwood has been an important site for many years, And just to say that there's no reason, the reason there's no reason is because nobody's looked. So if you're going to dig 5 meters down, it's quite possible that something will be found that is relevant.
Just to reply, Councillor Took, I'm obviously not an archaeology expert, but in terms of there was no trigger for consultation for archaeology on this site. It might be possible to add an informative to the application to note, should anything be found, that the appropriate measures need to be taken. But I would, Lara, would it be acceptable to put an informative on this?
Lara Ultra here. I think if you put an informative on, it's not something they have to comply with, obviously, because it's different to a condition. So I'm not sure that an informative would achieve what Councillor Took is talking about.
I appreciate that, but I'm not sure we have. It would be reasonable to apply such condition to this site.
Okay.
I did do a degree in archaeology, so it is quite close to my heart, and at least an informative would help, even if you can't put a condition on it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll shut up now.
Thank you very much, David. My next speaker is Robin Cook, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. A couple of questions first, and then if I reserve the right to come back, depending on the answers, please. Again, it's around the car parking issue. First question is, I can't remember from the slides, and they were very good slides and very good presentation under the circumstances. Thank you for that. I can't remember, was there a turning space within the car park? That's question one. And question two, is there a separation for service vehicles, apart from the waste collection, but for delivery vehicles and so on? Could I have an answer to those, then reserve the right to come back if I may?
Steve, do you want to answer this, or shall I?
No, I'll answer this one, Naomi. Yes, councillor, as you can see before you, there's a from the main access in front of all the car parking spaces, there's the turning area as such, which will enable cars to turn within the site, so they should be able to enter and exit in a forward gear. One point that we haven't mentioned is if you just go in the main access and then to the left, you can see an unusual extended L shape, if you like. That's the one. That's for ambulances, but can obviously double up for deliveries. What I would say is that Edmonton Road is an unclassified road. So the general policy that we have as a highway authority is that you do not require on-site turning facilities on an unclassified road, a D-class road. So allowing for the fact that this has got basically a turning stub immediately to the south of the turning of the access itself and the junction. If you had a larger service vehicle that needed to negotiate its way out of the site, we feel that it could do so safely. Hopefully that's answered your question.
You wanted to come back, Robin?
Well, no, it has answered it. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one because there's no footpath, is there? If I remember from the photograph, and that was one of the things. If vehicles are going to have to reverse out of there with no footpath and a stall just fairly close by, I believe, it's something I wanted to consider because I know these sort of issues do arise with this sort of development. But I think I've had a reasonable degree of insurance, so thanks, Steve, for that.
Just through the chair, there is a footway immediately outside the site, councillor. It's probably a 1 to 1.5 metre footway which runs along the site boundary.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks.
Okay, thank you both very much. I'm now going to move on to the next speaker, who is Shane Bartlett, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got a question I'd like to ask. For me, I think this is quite a constrained site, and I think that's borne out by the parking arrangements and the lengths that the developer's gone to try and accommodate the parking provision that he has to require on the site. And my concerns are that if there was to be additional on-street parking within the area, I know that there is locally I think it's a first school in the local vicinity. I'd just like to know because I've got concerns about any additional on-street parking and safety measures. I'd just like to know if this is considered to be a safe route into that school.
If I may answer that through the chair. You're quite correct, Councillor. There is a school at the top end of Edmonton Road to the north of the side. It is some distance from here, but it obviously is utilised by pedestrians and mums and dads with their kids. I'm not aware of it being identified as a safer route to school, but by virtue of the fact it carries substantially less traffic than the adjacent main road, and as has been alluded to before, this road was closed some time ago to prevent through traffic. It does operate in some circumstances as a shared surface. So the simple answer is that yes, it is utilised, I would imagine, by parents and children to go to school, but allowing for the relatively low traffic numbers, and particularly the fact that the peak, the 2 to 3, is outside of the school exit time, as it were, we didn't feel that there were any sustainable issues to recommend a refusal on this. So hopefully that's answered your question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, my next speaker is Cherry Brooks.
Thank you. I'm delighted to see a stacking system because you don't see an awful lot of them outside of the cities, and I think it's great that that the developers and our officers are actually looking at things like that for parking. The one issue that I do have a worry about is that the objection from the social care team that the living accommodation is not what they would expect, because what's the point of building a care home if it's not it's not fit for purpose? Can I get some sort of reassurance on that, please?
Yes, to Naomi speaking, just to clarify on that. It wasn't so much an objection. It was comments raised in terms of they raised concern that it wasn't as per the modern standards. Sorry, I'm just getting up the actual response. But in the previous applications, so that was in response to the initially refused application, and that wasn't a reason for refusal. So the specific concerns were the modern practice in care homes is to design smaller clusters of bedrooms as household units with smaller dining, lounge and food preparation facilities. But this home appears to be still designed as floors of bedrooms with communal facilities located on the ground floor. So while the concerns were raised, but it didn't form a reason for refusal previously.
Okay, do you wish to come back, Cherry? Turn your microphone on then, please.
Sorry, yes, please, if I can come back on that. Because it was not found to be a reason for refusal previously, why could it not be found a reason to be refused now? I don't understand.
In terms of the officer's response, and my recommendation for approval, as was considered acceptable previously, I'm working with the on the basis of what the previous officer recommended, and what I agreed with some of the reasons for, well, the previous reasons for refusal. I also agree that on balance, the standard of amenity proposed here isn't inadequate enough to warrant a reason for refusal.
Okay, still want to come back, Cherry?
Just once more, on balance, that's quite important to us, isn't it? So I'll take my judgment from that. Thank you.
Chairman, if I may come in, Kim Cowell here. My understanding from what Naomi is saying in relation to in answer to Councillor Brooks's question, is it's not the accommodation itself that's substandard. It's the arrangement of the rooms in clusters which is preferred to them being arranged on a corridor. So from a planning point of view, that's not where we're saying that the accommodation itself is substandard. There just is a preferred arrangement, and I think in planning terms it'd be very difficult for us to refuse that on that basis. because the accommodation meets a standard. It doesn't meet the preferred layout choices that are now being put forward.
Okay, thank you for that, Kim. I have one more speaker at the moment, and that is Bill Trite.
Thank you, Chairman. I note that it took until the involvement of Councillor Simon Gibson before any reference at all was made to the Town Council's views in this matter. I always have much respect for what a town or parish council says, and in this case I note that the Town Council continues to oppose on several grounds which it very clearly defines. Now, my particular concerns here are that the proposal is out of keeping with the character of the local area, and secondly, the overall massing and scale, which I think are simply too great. So I'm afraid I don't find myself warmly disposed towards this development. But I did have one little question. Could an officer enlarge a little bit on the effects on Verwood Heath, which I gather is within 400 metres? Would somebody care to indicate what the problem there is, and why it is not a sufficient concern to prevent this application in their view?
Yes, to respond to Councillor Trite, in terms of Verwood Heath, it's required under the Dorset Heathland SPD, Natural England. Obviously, they don't allow additional dwellings within 400 metres, given the impact on the heathland. However, they do consider care homes. In particular, care homes for residents who are required 24-hour care or dementia care. Given the nature of the patient, they're unlikely to be going out beyond the site. So in terms of that, Natural England were consulted, and they raised no objection, subject to securing the appropriate mitigation. In order to determine the appropriate mitigation, the appropriate assessment was carried out, which concluded that we could, if we could secure by condition or planning obligation certain criteria, which I mentioned in my presentation, that the development would be acceptable in accordance with the Dorset Heathland SPD. Those requirements, as I pointed out in my presentation, would be necessary to limit the residential occupancy of the site to those with dementia or the requirement of 24-hour close care, restrict more than one member of staff from sleeping at the care home, restrict pets on the site, and require proposed parking to be limited to care home and staff visitors. So a unilateral undertaking, a legal agreement, was provided by the applicant, which takes these points on board and has been secured, and that has been agreed by the Dorset Council legal team. So the mitigation measures have been secured by this legal agreement, which therefore makes the dementia care home acceptable within 400 metres of the heathland.
Okay, thank you for that, but my other concerns remain. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. My next speaker is Alex Brenton, please.
Thank you, Chair. It seems to me that this is a development which maximises sort of use and therefore I assume income, but doesn't actually particularly offer a pleasant place to have. I mean, it's quite imposing. You can argue it's out of scale, but it's certainly a big building. It is a constrained site. I quite like the parking thing, but what worries me is these rooms are like rooms of a dormitory with very little sort of social activity. And there appears to be very little thought or attention to what these people are going to do. And it's all very well saying, oh, they don't do much, but they're not going to walk to the heath, fair enough. This isn't a site where there's a sort of, the landscaping is set up to give them a pleasant place to wander. It just seems that it's like a way of parking people and perhaps not stacking them up like the cars are stacked up, but you know, it has reminiscences of almost a prison situation to me. I am not happy with it.
Okay, thank you, Alex. My next speaker is David Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. I will try and be brief. I myself am familiar with this site, and when I first heard that a built on it, can you still hear me or not?
Yes, we can. Keep going.
No. Sorry, it keeps going off. Can you hear me?
Try again. Yes, I can hear you.
Hello? Can you still hear me?
I can now. Would you like me to? Do you want to
keeps
carry on, or do you want
going
to? Do you want to try
I
and
don't
continue?
know. I'll speak quickly.
Okay.
I know the site. When I first heard that there was a care home to be built, I was absolutely amazed that anyone would think of the care home on that. Gosh. Oh, flipping it.
Keep with it. You're still with us.
Dear. Hello?
We can still hear you, David. Keep going.
Sorry about this. Yes, I'll be very brief. I don't want to reiterate what people have said, but the site is very constrained. There is no street lighting at night. It's absolutely pitch black out there, I can assure you. And when winter comes, by 4 o'clock, it would be dark. Hello, back again.
You're still here. You didn't go. Keep going.
On. Yes, the Ides of March or July are not with me. It's a very dark site. The end of Adminsham Road is completely blocked off. So when you get to the end, unless you go round a circuitous route to get out, it's very difficult. So I have concerns about the parking as well.
You've disappeared.
I'll be very brief, Madam Chairman. My honest opinion is that for the reasons which have been, I think, by Councillor Gibson, and my own thoughts about the bulk and the size and the allocation of where the site is, it's not, in my opinion, a suitable place to place this care home. And as I say, I'm in a cleft stick, but I think I would not be supporting the applicant. Not the right place for the reasons put forward by the objectors to build a care home in that place.
Okay. David, are you moving refusal?
So I think I would, on that basis, knowing the site as I do, I think it would look very squashed in.
We've lost you.
Come on.
You're back again.
Yes, back again. Sorry, my last dying words, which they probably will be, is that I would move refusal on the grounds that have been put forward, etc.
Okay.
Chairman, could we have those specified, please? Because I'd like, I think from members' point of view, if you are going to move refusal and vote on it, then I think we need some clarity on precisely which of the points raised. Everything Councillor Gibson said, or elements of the and you mentioned objectives. Clearly, I think we need to have that refined. So far, I've got 2 constrained to accommodated development of the bulk, scale and form proposed, but I haven't got any more than that.
Parking would be difficult.
Your highway engineer, councillor, has told you that it meets the highway parking standards and there is no highway objection. So, and that there's adequate turning. So again, I think we need
Jim,
from an office.
Yeah, oh, you're back again. Yeah.
Sorry, councillor.
I just keep going on and off.
I think we just need some more clarity on this, on the specifics, please. If we're going to assist you by drafting.
It's following basically what Simon Gibson was saying. I could say a lot more, but it keeps going on.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, could I speak? Because I've got a list of my objections to this.
I think we will move on. David, we might well come back to you in a moment, and hopefully your connection will improve.
On, Madam Chairman. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, turn your microphone off for now, and we'll come back to you shortly. Jane, over to you, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just before I go through my list of objections, could I ask a question, please, of the officers? The car stacking system, and this is obviously the stupid question of the day. Obviously, they're going to be 2 below ground. They could be 3 above ground from the engineering drawings that we saw. Could I just ask, when those cars are on those lifts, what prevents them from coming off the list should there be a brake failure or the driver forgetting to put a handbrake on? What prevents those cars from coming off of that lift? Could I just have an answer to that, please? And then could I come back, please, Madam Chairman?
I can answer that, Councillor Bartlett. In the technical spec and some of the images I've seen, there is a sort of not a lightweight barrier, but a barrier, a sort of rail located to the front. I don't think you can see it in the image on my presentation, but there is a rail located to the front, and I don't know, but I expect there's some sort of lip to the front of the platform as well to prevent it from rolling forward. I need to check the specs. Steve, do you know the details of that?
I'm afraid I don't. I mean, you've got the technical data in front of you. I'd imagine that looking at that, there's some form of lip at the back, and that some drivers are obviously told to engage the handbrake before they lose. I do take councillor's point that if they don't do it and it's rocking up and down, then we don't want them falling off. I'm sure they've thought about this in the other 7,000 locations that they've used them in the UK, hopefully. But no, I haven't got an answer, I'm afraid.
Shane, you want to come back?
Yes, please, Madam Chairman. Yeah, it's just a thought, because it wasn't clear in the designs. And I do take the officer's point that they've obviously installed 7,000 of these. So I take his point. Madam Chairman, Councillor Morgan has moved for refusal, and I would like to second that proposal. And my reasoning for it are quite manifold, actually. I believe due to the attempt to bring about the planning, bring about the parking that's needed on this site, proves that it is a constrained site. This is quite a it's quite a different way of doing parking on a site that we're used to. I can well imagine in city centres where ground is at a premium, ground space, that you would incorporate these types of sites. And I'll come back to this stacking parking system in a minute. So, going through my reasonings for the officers, we've set ourselves out that we're going to give good planning and good design. And I've got, my first concern is about the staff and then working below ground. We're looking at a meeting room, kitchen, library and office. It was all in a basement structure. And I don't think in this day and age, that's a good environment for staff to be working in. My second point is that it does appear to me to be overlooking other properties. And I think that is something that needs to be taken into consideration. I know that the office have said that they are content with it, but I think because it is such a bulky building in comparison with other residential properties in the area, and I do concede that there's a block of 3-floor flats that are more or less opposite, apparently, but I do think it's too bulky a building in that area that is predominantly bungalows or housing of Victorian or Edwardian design. Fourth point on that would be concerns about the increase of street parking. There is every possibility that this would appear to be a safe route into school. We haven't actually had that established. I take that in the debate, but what I know about the site, from the little I do know, is that it is a quieter road. I will imagine that it is being walked into school by the parents to the first school, and so therefore I think in part of this stacking system, we don't know whether the staff would actually use that or whether they would choose to park on street. Visitors to the site would be parking on street, no doubt, because there are insufficient parking spaces within the site, although they have followed the formula for creating those parking spaces. But we all know that these formulas often are inadequate in the amount of parking spaces that are needed. So my next point would be the rubbish and waste area. I think it's been badly positioned. Again, that leads to it being a constrained site. And this is borne out by the fact that DWP, it doesn't meet their requirements for them to be used. And therefore the dementia care home going into the future would have to use a private waste removal service. The site, and this is my real worry about the stacking system, is the site is not a closed site. It's an open site. So from a security point of view, and with a first school being in close proximity, and the fact that anyone can wander onto that site, and children are naturally inquisitive, I know that we now have various electronic gates up and down the country to residential properties that can't be used anymore because they don't now meet the design criteria to prevent children from being crushed against gates. This, as a councillor having to approve this, it does not sit well on my conscience. I really don't like this being on a non-secure site, this type of parking arrangement, and I've got real concerns about that. And I think from the final one for me is the town council, the developer. I would have thought had been in conversation with the town council, I would have assumed. They obviously haven't been able to take the local town council with them. I've got concerns about that, but that is more of a lesser concern. I think the other things that I've stated, for me, leads me to seconding the proposal for a refusal of permission. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Chairman, if I may come back on some of those points. I think that, and clearly, whilst it is the member's decision, we are here to try and assist you. I think in relation to overlooking, given the distances involved and the changes made to the design, and part of that element now be single story, I think on that specific point, you would have difficulty defending any decision at appeal. In relation to the electronic gates and the rubbish and waste area, Naomi in her presentation made it very clear that landscaping and hard landscaping and boundary enclosures were reserved, and those matters could be discussed and negotiated as part of a scheme moving forward should the need arise. In relation to the waste and rubbish area, if the waste wouldn't be collected by the Dorset Waste Partnership because of the position of the store, but that isn't to say that the size of the area isn't adequate for that purpose. It's its position that means that it wouldn't be collected. In relation to your other points and the concerns that members have raised, I think Office can assist you with drafting a reason for refusal, but I would put a note of caution against each of those points in particular. And if you would assist from listening to what Councillor Bartlett has said, I've quickly drafted something. It's not perfect, but if I read it back to you, hopefully it picks up on the points that Councillor Morgan, Councillor Bartlett and Councillor Gibson have raised, and you can let me know if I've if I'm within a yard of it. But if you want me to read out what I've drafted, I'm more than happy to.
Okay, before you do that, Kim, Alex Brenton has made some comment on chat, and I think she should put it to the whole committee, because I don't want to see comments on the merits of the application on the chat. It's about management of the meeting. So Alex, can I bring you in to say what you wanted to say, please?
Certainly, Chairman. I was thinking of other things that perhaps Councillor Morgan wanted to say but didn't. My objection, and the reason that if Councillor Morgan hadn't moved refusal, was it is overdevelopment, but it is also unsuitable for purpose. When it is not a secure, comfortable place for dementia patients. It is too busy. There's too many. The surroundings inside the site are not suitable. They're not a safe environment for them to walk. And I refer particularly to the comments of, well, I've just lost it here. High dependency patients require a secure outdoor space that removes the possibility that they will leave the site unaccompanied. I don't think that's been addressed, and we would be allowing somewhere through where we may have continuing problems with patients really not, being sort of tired, shut in, constrained in an unsuitable site. I just think it's an unsuitable building. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Again, Kim, before I come back to you, I did say I would go back to David Morgan. David, is your connection any better at the moment, and can you hear us, and do you want to say anything?
I can hear you, and the connection seems to be holding up. Yes, I think what has been said both by Councillor Brenton and Councillor Bartlett. Oh, no, it's gone off again.
Keep going. Try again.
Yeah, try again. Sorry about this. It's obviously something to do with my Wi-Fi, I think. Yes, I mean.
Try again.
Try again, yes. I think what has been said is what I was trying to say, is that the site is, in my opinion anyway, looking at it and knowing the surrounding area, it's not a suitable place, as Councillor Brenton has pointed out, to build a care home.
You're cutting in and out all the time, David. I'm really sorry, but I think we've picked up the sentiments of what you want.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that Edmondsham Road comes to a dead end. So
David,
so because can you hear me?
You're cutting out all the time, David. I'm really sorry.
I know. It's just that it's a confined space. It's not a suitable. It is overdevelopment, as Councillor Brenton has said. I think that's basically what I was, getting at. And I think if you were to look at the site,
Okay, David, I'm going to have to cut you off there because it's really not working. You're in and out all the time.
I hear you. Yeah.
But we can't hear you. We hear a sound bite and then you've gone.
I still go along with my views on that particular site.
Okay. I'm going to move back to Kim now, purely because of the difficulties that you have in communicating with us. But I think we have the full gist of your feelings and your reasons for refusal. Kim,
who's scribbling away, so hopefully what I've written reflects the discussion that I've heard. If I've missed anything, as I've said, please come back to me. So what I've drafted, members, is the following. The site is too constrained to accommodate development of the scale, bulk and form proposed, together with the need to provide adequate on-site parking and a satisfactory standard of residential amenity for residents. For these reasons, the development is considered to be overdevelopment of the site, contrary to policy HE2 of the Christchurch and East Dorset Local Plan Part 1, and also contrary to paragraphs, I think it's 122E and 122F of the National Planning Policy Framework that require a good standard of amenity for existing and future occupants. As I said, I apologise if I've missed anything, but I didn't include those elements that I felt you couldn't defend at appeal.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Shane now. He indicated that he wanted to come back after you had read out the reasons for refusal. Shane.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And obviously I would bow to Kim's vast experience in planning. But if I just take a small point as a member who's having a look at planning applications like this, and we have to deal with what's actually in front of us, and it becomes frustrating as a member. It does for me anyway. I can't speak for my colleagues on the rest of my colleagues on the committee, but it does become frustrating if you're picking up on something. If you just say the rubbish, the waste, where the waste is on this site, that we're told them, well, that could be negotiated and moved at a later date. We're dealing with what we're dealing with in front of us, and it's just a frustration from my point on that. But I'm perfectly happy with what Kim has written in her submission, and as I say, I would bow to her greater knowledge as a planning officer. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I'm desperately trying to retain chairing without falling into full local member mode. However, I did want to just put in one little piece of background information about the safe route to school. Yes, that is part of the pedestrian route from the town centre up to Trinity. And the other thing that I did pick up when the highways officer was speaking was that the peak time for traffic at the proposed care home would be 2 to 3 p.m, which is about school kicking out time. And certainly all the schools in Verwood, parents start to rock up from about 2:30 and park up and cause congestion all over the place. So that's just a little bit of local information. So I have no more speakers. It's been proposed and seconded to refuse for the reasons given by Kim Cowell. I am now going to put it to the vote. I will do the roll call. Again, you need to confirm that you have been able to hear the whole of the presentation and debate, which has been particularly difficult with the technology this afternoon. And I will actually be voting on this one. So from the top, Shane Bartlett.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I've witnessed the whole presentation and debate, and I vote to refuse. Thank you.
Alex Brenton.
I have seen and heard the whole presentation, and I would like to refuse.
Cherry Brooks.
I've seen and heard the whole presentation, and I support refusal.
Robin Cook.
Yes, I've listened to the whole presentation and support refusal.
Thank you. Mike Dyer.
Heard the whole presentation and abstain, Chairman.
Thank you. Barry Gorringe.
Thank you, Chairman. I've heard all the presentation and debate, and I support the reasons for refusal.
Thank you. David Morgan.
I've heard it all, including myself, and I vote refusal.
Thank you. David Took.
Sorry, Chairman. Yes, I've heard the whole debate, and I support refusal.
Thank you. Bill Trite, sorry.
I've heard the whole debate, and I too support refusal.
Okay, and John Worth had to leave the meeting at 3:30 and gives his apologies. I have said that I will vote on this, and I also support refusal. David, can we have the outcome of the vote, please?
Chairman, the outcome of the vote is 9 votes for refusal and 1 abstention.
Okay, in that case, the application is refused for the reasons given. Thank you all very much on that one. Just to go back to our main agenda, the last item on the agenda is urgent items, and I'm pleased to report there are no urgent items. So therefore, can I thank everybody, including the people furiously working behind the scenes to keep us online and keep us going, to thank you all for your input today, whether member or officer, and thank you. And that's the end of the meeting.